Welcome to this week's End of Days Update, coming to you from Tulsa, Oklahoma. We had such a great time in Florida this last weekend. Both churches were so great, so hungry for the Lord. Amazing how everyone's so into the coming of the Lord. The signs are so blatant, it just shows us how close we are. Isn't it amazing we're about to see Jesus face to face? Well, we're coming to you every week to look at the different things that point to the coming of the Lord. Specifically, we talk about all the signs of the second coming, but we look at kind of the structuring and gathering of nations for the Ezekiel 38 war, because that happens right after the rapture of the church. And man, things are falling into place every single week that point to that. So, remember Jesus, he said, hey, you can tell what the weather's going to be. We don't know your hour of your visitation. So he wanted them to know. And we look at end times not as an escape theology, as an acceleration theology. You see the finish line, you run faster, not slower. I had one guy say, Joe, if you teach on the coming of the Lord, you just get everybody's hopes up. I said, duh, that's right. It's the hope that purifies us even as we're pure. So we look at all these things because we have more verses written about what it would look like right before the coming of the Lord than pretty much anything in the Bible. So why did God go to so much trouble? So we would have a heads up and we would act accordingly to harvest as fast as we can and get as much done in a short period of time. So let's look at what's happened around Israel this last week. Man, probably the biggest thing is Gaza. Hamas is firing, not just sending incendiary balloons into Israel, but putting explosives on those incendiary balloons. So, of course, Israel's having to go into bomb shelter, so COVID can spread that way like Hamas has been doing. But Hamas didn't stop there. They started firing rockets the last few days. I think there were 15 rockets in the last couple of days. Israel responded with hammering them with tank fire and with fighter planes, went into certain areas. So that's a big deal, but some other things happened about that we'll get to in a minute. And that's really probably having to do with Turkey. Turkey's getting ready to have a military exercise off the coast of Greece. Greece decided they would have a military exercise at the same time, so there could absolutely be explosive things happening with that. Because even like that secular newspaper person said a couple weeks ago about Turkey, they're basically going on mini wars completely all the way surrounding Israel so they can pretty much attack Israel. And that's exactly what their plan is doing. So with that, Hamas's leader from Gaza there on the southern part of Israel went up and met with the president of Turkey, going over things. This is interesting that Debka could even come up with this, going over different ways they could get armament down into Lebanon. In the middle of all that, Turkey ended up giving about 15 of their head guys passports, so Hamas's main people could go anywhere they want to go. And Erdogan came out, this is the president of Turkey, came out saying again, it's time. Now this amazes me. This is about the 12th or 13th time he said this. It's time for us in Turkey to go up and ascend to the Temple Mount and take Jerusalem from the Jews. So really, when I started doing the End of Days Update, the Lord told me to look at Turkey, and boy, Turkey's literally pushing the fulfillment of the Ezekiel 38 war in every area. Many more things happening with Turkey that it's hard to get into all the things that are happening, but man, Turkey's blatantly doing the things that are set up for the Ezekiel 38 war. In the midst of that, you had Secretary of State Pompeo in Israel doing a video from there for the Republican National Convention. He's really touting how cool it was for the United Arab Emirates to have a wonderful peace treaty with Israel. All the other Arab nations are kind of falling in place, wanting to do that. Now, as these things are set up like this is a false peace before the Antichrist comes on the scene and brings another false peace right there during the tribulation. So quite a few things that are blatant are going on right in front of our eyes. This one's kind of wild. Last week I forgot to talk about, we had an asteroid they found out after the fact come within 1,800 miles of the Earth. Now listen to the math of this. That's really close. That's crazy that they found out 2 days later. But last week you had that, 1,800 miles. The week before that you had one that was 18,000 miles. The week before that you had one that was 180,000 miles. You had that number 18 3 times in a row. How do you come up with 18? 666. 3 6s equal 18. So even asteroids are talking to us about there's something coming called the Antichrist. Remember when Solomon, the Queen of Sheba, met with Solomon, she brought to him 666 talents of gold. After the house of the Lord was complete, that's what he brought her. So we even heard things from the Pope this last week that setting up literally a platform for the Antichrist to come on the scene with one world authority, one world religious system, and one world monetary system. That's about the 5th or 6th time the Pope has come up with things like that, because Jesus is coming so soon. I am amazed at how blatant it's getting with all the nations that are around Israel doing the things that they're doing, because used to, they would try to keep things hidden, but man, it's just right in front of our face. Now, this is the coolest thing that's happened. The Sanhedrin met with Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister, literally asking for and requesting to blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. It'll be the first time the shofar is blown on the Jewish New Year since the fall of the last temple. So, man, that will be interesting. That would be in September 18th of this year. That would be blown right there on the Temple Mount. There's a lot of things going on behind the scenes with Jordan and the Temple Mount. Looks like the status quo is getting ready to try to change, that Israel may be able to use the Temple Mount a little bit more. So those are the things that really bring in World War III. So, man, we're so blessed to watch all of them come to pass, because Jesus is about to come. So we always go to the Word. What's the Bible say? How can we be so blatant about this? How can we be so precise? Jesus said these things so that we could know that the kingdom of God is at hand. So England wanted me to get bold about that. So Jesus said the generation that sees Israel made a nation and Jerusalem won back won't pass away till all is fulfilled. So those two signs have happened in our lifetime, 1967 and 1948. He said, so that you could know, not wonder, not sense, perceive, you could know that the kingdom of God is nigh at hand. So we're privileged. But you have so many more. Why would the Lord go to so much trouble to put all the signs in there so we could tell how close we are? So you have the Hebrew language restored, because God said He would do that just before the coming of the Messiah. So then you got the fertility of the land of Israel. It preaches for Israel. It's amazing. If you got into all the stuff about the fertility, it's crazy. You have the Temple Mount Institute that's ready to start having sacrifices. Man, they're the ones pushing the Sanhedrin to get ready to work on the Temple Mount. And then you have the revival of the Roman Empire, pretty wild. The platform for the Antichrist that's happened in our lifetime. So Ethiopian Jews being brought back in one day. So all these different things that God said He would do just before the coming of the Lord. So that preaches to us. These are tangible, physical things that we can look at and go, wow, Jesus is about to come back. You have many more. You have 172 different species of predatory birds. That's radical. You got the cleanup crew in Israel right now, and that's pretty blatant. You had fish show up in the Dead Sea. That was prophesied 2,500 years ago. You had foxes show up on the Temple Mount. You had the ritual baths around the Temple Mount fill up with water, first time in 2,000 years. So you have all these things that add up to Jesus is about to come. You have men will be lovers themselves. We have selfie sticks. Who would have thought we'd ever be living when people would want to take photographs of themselves over and over and over and over again? So all these things that God said you'd see, you're seeing. There's so much more going on with Russia behind the scenes, being provocative. Really, the things that are intriguing to me are the behind the scene things with the Temple Mount. But all these signs add up to we're about to see. But then you had signals. You had the blood red moons on Passover and Tabernacles a few years ago. Last time you had 4 in a row like that was 1967. 1948, when Israel's made a nation, and 1492, the Edict of Expulsion. So you have signals in the heavens coinciding with radical things happening with the nation of Israel. But you have more. You had the Bethlehem star last year. That's pretty radical. Jupiter, Regulus, Venus. Amazing. NBC Nightly News said we have a celestial event. You got Jupiter, you got Regulus, you got Venus. Bethlehem star, first time in 2,000 years. So the heavens are signaling Jesus is about to come. You should look at the Bethlehem star and look at the bonus feature. It's about 2 minutes long. It shows what the heavens look like exactly at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when Jesus was on the cross. Aries, the Passion Lamb, the heart of the Lamb goes black. There's an eclipse and puts out the heart of the Lamb exactly when Jesus was giving His life, right there on the cross. I mean, the heavens to be that flawless is absolutely amazing. So what does that tell us? Jesus is just about to come back. What do? Help our local church, help our local pastor. Let's be engaged. Let's be all in. This is the time not to back down. This is not the time to be weary and well-doing. This is the time to go forward. How amazing that we'll get to see Him so soon. So what's all this information for? He loves you so much. He wants you blessed. He wants you encouraged. He wants you strengthened. Just like when you get married, would you be bummed out on the night before you got married? No. The Lord wants the church explosive, showing forth the resurrection, demonstrating that death could not hold Jesus down. Why? Because the King's about to come, the one who was and is to come. The whole earth is full of His glory. I like what Gabriel said to Daniel. He said, don't worry, the Ancient of Days will prevail. Jesus coming so soon. Well, let's come back next week and see what's happened with the incendiary balloons and the explosives that have gone off. I didn't even talk about 4 of the Hamas operatives blew themselves up trying to send a bomb over into Israel. So all this stuff's getting ready to explode into even more. Why? The King's coming back. Have a blessed, awesome week. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Thanks Thanks for joining us today at the End of Days Update. If you'd like to be notified every time there's a new post, just go to the edu at josephmorris.com and subscribe to receive email alerts. If these posts and updates have been a blessing to you, please consider making a one-time donation to help get the message out, or even becoming a monthly partner with Joseph Morris Ministries. Thanks again for tuning in to the EDU, and we'll see you next week.
One love to overshadow.